Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Carpenito, President and CEO of Broadway Medical Supply, located in the heart of beautiful downtown Westwood, New Jersey. Broadway Medical Supply finding solutions together. Today, I'm honored to bring our newest solution into the Broadway family. Joining me today on our first broadcast is Dr. Thomas Seager from Arizona State University, also CEO of Morozko Forge Ice Baths and cold immersion therapy. Tom, welcome.
Thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's a
This is a
pleasure to have you.
delight.
It's so funny. We talk about our backstory, how Tom and I met. Cold immersion just really became a part of my life about 6 months ago. And the benefits for me, both mentally, as far as mental acuity, physically, have just been off the charts. And it was funny. One day I just happened to say, you know what? There's nothing that I wouldn't do, or no dollar amount when it comes to my health that I wouldn't spend. And I said, if I'm going to step up, I'm going to step up to the best, which is Morozko. Gave Tom, happened to give them a call. Was listening to one of Tom's podcasts, and lo and behold, guess who answers the phone? Tom, you can't even make this up.
I remember that phone call very well.
And now look at where we are now. I'm proud to say that Broadway Medical will now be an exclusive dealer of Morozko here in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Eastern Pennsylvania area. So come on in and see it. Also, it gives you access to the man himself, the man behind the science. And I think, Tom, in this space, cold immersion, which again, we're going to be reframing it now from cold plunging, cold immersion therapy is really taking a bad rap. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
I don't know about a bad rep, but I get a lot of emails and text messages about things that people say on social media that are irresponsible. You can't believe what the Wikipedia page is going to tell you when it comes to health and wellness. The people who make their living getting clicks are not going to be giving you reliable information on what's going to keep you healthy. No matter what they say you should do, don't do it if it's not working for you. And no matter what they say you should not do, keep doing what is working for you.
It's so interesting because you hear from all these prognosticators, well, you shouldn't go too cold, but you go too warm. And the one thing I found interesting in all of your podcasts, and by the way, you can follow all of Dr. Tom Seager, Seager's podcasts on YouTube, extremely informative. I found it very interesting that it comes down to, you know what? What's the best temperature? It's the temperature. What is it, Tom? You tell them.
If you're starting off, go cold enough to gasp, go long enough to shiver. If you're new to cold exposure, your body's not acclimated. When you get the gasp reflex, you know you've activated the sympathetic division of your central nervous system. That's cold enough for you. It could be 50 degrees, it could be 35 degrees. If you go to Google and you say, I want to start a weight training program, I want to get in shape, it's a new year, what's the ideal weight and number of reps for me? Google will say, oh, you should meet with a trainer, and they'll probably give you like a weight that you can lift for maybe 10 to 12 reps, where the last couple are really difficult. Google doesn't know what your prior state of weight training is. But if you go to Google and say, what's the ideal temperature and time for an ice bath? Google will say, well, here's what it is, and it's this for everybody, no matter what. You don't know how cold acclimated you are until you get into the cold. So you go cold enough to gasp, and then if you're just starting out, go long enough to shiver. After you become acclimated, because you've done some cold training, you don't have to shiver anymore. The brown fat does what's called non-shivering thermogenesis. Most adults don't have any brown fat, but after 2 weeks of regular cold immersion therapy, you're going to get brown fat in your body that will make heat without the shivering. So you don't have to spend 7 or 8 minutes in freezing cold water with the ice chunks up to your neck and say, well, Professor Seeger said I was supposed to shiver. No, that's just if you're starting out. After that, 2 to 5 minutes at a temperature cold enough to make you gasp, you're going to get a lot of benefit.
And I think that's the key. Now, I know, Tom, you and and Joe Rogan, some of the other guys, I like the fear factor. I like getting in there and I like being scared. And every morning it's the same thing. Go out there and open that lid and I see those little white monsters staring at me. It's not easy. But again, in this space, in what we're looking to do, bringing it into the health and wellness space, we want to make it more user friendly, which again, your formula seems to work better.
Most people who are our customers at Morozko, they're conscientious about health and fitness. They're part of the healthier segment of society, and they might be doing an ice bath for the mental benefits. Now, I'm a sedentary, overweight college professor. I don't work out. I'm not a gym bro. I'm not getting into the ice bath because I'm getting ready for the Super Bowl or because I'm, trying to train for a triathlon or something like that. I live a life of the mind. When my anxieties become, I start to feel like they're getting the better of me, and my catastrophizing brain is thinking about all the terrible things that haven't happened yet, that's when I get into the ice bath. That's when I want to see the floating ice chunks that are going to scare the crap out of me. The most difficult thing about the ice bath is the 15 seconds before you actually get into the ice bath. And you've got that voice in your head trying to talk you out of it, trying to make an excuse for why you don't have to do the hard thing. Then I get in there, and maybe 30 seconds later, I'm like, what was I even worried about? What?
It's all good.
But I'm not in there to reduce inflammation. I'm not in there for muscle building. I like the testosterone benefits that I get. It helps me feel young, but I'm not in there for physiological reasons anymore. A lot of people who are coming to Broadway Medical are not in the position that I'm in. They've got chronic back pain, or they've got chronic knee pain, or their obesity has led to type 2 diabetes that is giving them trouble with circulation in their limbs. They're suffering from neuropathy. They don't have the same gait or coordination that they used to have. Now, from what I've seen on your showroom, you've got the beds and you've got the strollers and you've got the lift chairs that will make their lives more comfortable. I am not the guy that you should be selling. Rob, I am the uncomfortable guy. Your customers are saying, how do I help my mom get through her day? How do I help get my dad out of bed? This is really difficult. And I get it. What Morozko is about is making all the rest of the products in your showroom obsolete. I don't want to lift bed when I'm 80. I don't want to be your customer when I'm 95. I want to stay a Morozko man.
I don't blame you, Tom. And I think not that I think, I know the route that we want to go now. We talk about the hospital beds and the lift recliners and the scooters being more of a more reactive wellness. You're reacting to a need. You're coming in here, you're saying, Rob, I need that. I need that. And then Broadway Medical, we're there for you. We're there for the sale. We're there for the service. We're there for the support. But now with Morozko, getting into more of the proactive wellness. Like you said, before you get into that hospital bed, we're going to have the cold immersion therapy. We're going to have the sauna. We haven't even discussed mineral baths and red light therapy and the new green light therapy that you have now. We have a lot going on here.
Agreed. Before people correctly get the impression that they say, oh, that's Professor Seager sounds like a jerk, which I can. I got to think about my own dad. My parents have passed on. My mother from dementia, and my father, a series of pneumonia, infections. Just my parents thought that their health was their physician's problem. I remember talking to my dad at Thanksgiving maybe 10, 12 years ago, and he said, well, I got 5 different kinds of cancer, and the question is, which one's going to get me first? None of them did. My dad, he went to bed on the day he knew he wasn't going to get up. He went out on his own terms, and that's sort of
Wow.
okay. I respect him for that. But when I was watching him, I thought, I never want to be in his position. I never want to be in that state of helplessness that he was communicating to me. My health is not my doctor's problem. It is my problem. And I'm going to keep that in my own hands for as long as I can. So I was imagining on your showroom, somebody maybe about my age, maybe a little bit
Our
younger.
age.
Yeah. Who's facing
Yeah.
these elder care issues, whose uh, parents grew up in a different time, who didn't know. Maybe the parents, like my mother did, she raised us on margarine and Lucky Charms because they told her that was healthy. Look, we sprayed vitamins on these sugar marshmallows, so that's good for your kids. And that's what she fed me and my sisters. That sometimes the parents were the victims of advertising and propaganda and biased science, and they believed it. And now the people our age are saying, well, I want to help those parents, but we don't ever want to follow their example if we can avoid it. When you're buying a med bed for your mom, it's got to be going in the back of your mind, what about me? Am I going to need one of those in 20 years? Now, I'm pretty proud that you've got a Morozko on your showroom floor.
Yeah.
And that's for the people who never want to come back to your store so they can, get a stroller or a lift stair or something like that.
I think once we start re-educating people in this space that, being uncomfortable isn't a bad thing. If you're giving your body that little bit of stress, you're more resilient than you think. Would you agree?
I agree. What my grandparents used to think of as a hardship, we now think of as therapy. My mother, she grew up in Maine. I'm named for her father, my grandfather,
Oh, no
right?
kidding. Oh,
He
wow.
didn't have any heat in his first car. Are you kidding? The windshield wipers barely worked. And for him, having a car was an incredible luxury. Now we want leather seats and climate controls and GPS like navigation.
Absolutely, the push button lifestyle.
We have it
Easier the
so
better.
easy. My grandfather would be in the back and he'd be split in the woods so that he could keep his family warm in the winter. Well, he thought of that was a hardship. Now we have these camps where you can go and splitting wood is like a workout and it
Mhm.
raises your testosterone and it keeps you healthy. Our lives are so comfortable that it's actually killing us. More comfort is not the answer for health and wellness. It's a temporary bridge to the right level at which you can challenge your body. It's called hormetic stress. You do something that is in the short term going to make you feel sore or tired, or it could be scared, like in the ice bath. But over the long term, it makes you stronger, more flexible, and more brave. Hormetic stress are the things, the hardships that you choose, which have a therapeutic effect. I can't live like my grandfather. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm in the hottest city in North America. Everybody in Phoenix is vitamin D deficient, despite we get so much sunshine.
Go
They
figure.
won't go out in the summertime because it's too dang hot to be in the sun, and their dermatologist is telling them the sun is dangerous. As a result, they wind up in the sunniest place in America, deficient in vitamin D. It makes no sense. But the technological infrastructure that civil engineers like me have developed to keep us safe and comfortable have these perverse consequences, this funny feedback loop of actually making us chronically ill, whether that's a vitamin D deficiency or a red light deficit that leads to metabolic dysfunction, insulin resistance that becomes type 2 diabetes. Every single leading cause of death in the United States from chronic illness originates in mitochondrial dysfunction. This is why we can get into the cold water and you can curse my name every morning. If you're like,
I do.
damn that Professor
Believe
Seeger,
that.
right? And yet when you get out, you will feel fantastic. You will see improvement in your labs. You do a little exercise after your ice bath, you will build your own testosterone and you won't need testosterone replacement therapy to feel young and to feel that drive to compete anymore. Some of these hardships that you take on voluntarily make all the ones that are thrust upon you involuntarily that much easier to deal with.
Amen. You know what I really can't wait till we get into, Tom, is again through listening to your series of podcasts, the effects of cold water immersion again. Not cold plunging, everybody. Cold water immersion, the benefits for Parkinson's, the benefits for Alzheimer's, benefits for prostate cancer, the benefits for inflammation in general. Every one of my clients that comes into Broadway Medical is suffering with some sort of inflammation, and they come with some sort of they're in that reactive wellness state. What we're going to do is we're going to teach them or try to inform them a little bit more that there is a better way than medicine. Not this in the medical community now, but your body, and again, from your podcast, I've said, and you can elaborate this, the body has the ability to heal itself if you give it what it needs.
This is one of the things that advertising, marketing has really taken from us, is the realization that the body is capable of healing itself. Now, it needs the right nutrients and it needs the right stimulus. It needs the right environment. But you are equipped with everything you
At any
need.
age.
Exactly right.
Okay.
We had a woman on my podcast. Her name is Sarah Kleiner. She wanted to have a second child. Well, she's 40 years old. So her OBGYN said, well, she's geriatric. You know, the odds of a 40-year-old woman having a successful pregnancy are way lower than the same woman at 30. But the difference that her OBGYN doesn't say is the quality of her mitochondria. It's her metabolic health that deteriorates over that decade, and it brings her fertility down with it. So she lost 2 pregnancies. And then her OBGYN said, you should do IVF. You know, it'll increase your odds. She tried it twice, cost them tens of thousands of dollars. Both failed to produce viable embryos. Now they're on the verge of giving up on this dream of having a second child. But she met with somebody who had worked with Dr. Jack Cruz. And this person said, you need to get into the cold. And she said, no, I don't want to do that. That's painful. He said, well, how bad do you want that baby? She said, I'll give it a try. She went to Costco and she started, buying shopping carts full of ice, doing this 4 or 5 times a week. It took her 4 months to get pregnant. And at the age of 43, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy.
Wow.
Now she's a Morozko customer because when you take care of your metabolism can take care of everything else in your body, whether that's growth or wound repair or
Another big one,
longevity. Of course, all of this takes energy. The question is the energy just going into making you fatter, or is the energy going into making you stronger? Is the energy going into all the healthy processes that maintain that vitality of life? And this is a matter of the signals that your body is sensing in the environment. When you give the body the signals that you're in a challenging environment, your body responds by becoming stronger to meet that challenge. When you give your body the signals, and your brain too, that, well, you're in a comfortable environment, you're always safe, your body will relax, not in the sense of stress, but in the sense of taking energy out of your muscles and putting it in your fat, saying, we don't know how long this is going to last. We got to save up more fat stores just in case we hit some kind of starvation mode. Your body is responding to the signals that you give it because it is designed to do it in exactly that way. If you tell your body, oh, we got a lot of work to do, and you come back from your gym, your body might be complaining. Your muscles might be saying, what are we thinking? Why are we doing that? I'm in pain. Next day, you're stronger. You're equipped with everything that you need for a healthy, vital life. You just got to tell your body. You have to give it the instructions and the nutrients that it needs to keep you strong and healthy.
And I think that's a by giving it what it needs. We get people in all the time. A knee brace is going to alleviate my problem. A back brace will eliminate my problem. And I tell them, hey, it's like putting a Band-Aid over a bullet hole. I mean, you're not addressing the core problem: inflammation, flexibility, get up and move. I mean, you said it before, the sedentary lifestyle. I mean, that's what's killing people more.
I can't blame them for thinking that way. My parents were born 1930 and 1937. My grandmother, pregnant with my dad, before the stock market crash. October, the stock market crashes. Now, grandfather was a stockbroker. February, here comes my dad. I can't even imagine what it must have been like for my grandparents to bring a baby into this world at the beginning of the Depression.
Right.
My mother was at the tail end of the Depression. And after the Depression is over, we go straight into World War II. Can you imagine the psychology that my parents must have grown up with? And if, some scientist at Harvard said, well, margarine is healthier. And that's why Dwight Eisenhower had a heart attack because he eats too many steaks. It's got nothing to do with the 6 packs of cigarettes a day that the guy used to smoke.
Right,
It's
right.
more like this over here. My parents, they're in a constant state of fear of scarcity. Of course, they packed on the pounds.
Mm.
Of course, they were eating the cheapest foods because it's what they knew as children. I can't ask them to change their whole mindset
The old dog new
overnight.
tricks. Yeah.
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 And
100%.
thank goodness for the sacrifices that my parents and my grandparents made that give me, I got the Wi-Fi and I got a
Right.
mega computer sitting in my pocket. Are you kidding? Our wonderful technological lifestyle that is built upon the sacrifices of our ancestors. I'm not giving that up. And yet I have to go seek the sun and the cold water and the things that my parents could take for granted, the fresh foods, the fresh eggs, for example. I have to find those things and make sure that I get them, or I will lapse into a state of dis-ease.
Wow. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot that we're going to need to teach people, Tom, in this space. I think a big part of it, and the expos that we talked about, the Abilities Expo coming up this May in Edison, New Jersey, we'll get a chance to address a whole new audience, give people a whole new perspective on proactive health. So, like you said before, you don't need that hospital bed, or you have something to our new tagline is going to be immerse, emerge, restore. So we immerse into it, we emerge from it, and we restore the vitality that we had when we hope we restore the vitality we have or when we were younger. And we're going to teach and we're going to preach that message, and we're going to show through real studies that you've spent the time doing that present that evidence.
Rob, your new tagline, I don't know if you realize this, but it's the hero's journey. You leave the familiar world. You enter the unfamiliar world. You are challenged by a series of Hercules went through this, right? A series of challenges you don't know if you can meet. And on the brink of despair, you are imbued with the secret knowledge or whatever it is that you get from the mentor that allows you to change the way you see the world. You are transformed by it. And then you re-enter the familiar world. This is the Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy, she says she's bored in the black and white world of Kansas. She gets swept away,
Right.
to the unfamiliar world where she is immersed in Oz. And what does she find out? To get back home, all she has to do is click her heels.
Click her heels.
Right?
Atta-
There's
yep.
no place like home. She returns to Kansas as a new person. This is what we can do for your customers. They're going to be uncomfortable. They're going to have to leave the world they know. They're going to have to leave the braces and the wheelchairs and the lifts. They don't have to abandon them all at once, but they have to be willing to leave the familiar, comfortable world. When they enter the uncomfortable world, there's going to be a moment where they say, what am I doing here? There's going to be the moment of despair where they say, I never should have done this. What did I sign up for? This is crazy. And in that moment of despair, the secret knowledge, the transformation begins when they emerge from the unfamiliar world and they come out of the ice bath intact, feeling like $1,000,000 with the inflammation down and the energy levels up. They can return to their family and their familiar world, and they will be a changed person. You are selling the equipment that they need to create their own hero's journey, to be the hero of their own story and restore what they used to take for granted when they were younger.
I never believed in selling in anything that we do at Broadway as a transaction. Everything is about the transformation. And when I look to align Broadway with other manufacturing partners, you need to bring me that commitment because I feel through the years that people have looked to Broadway, they've always come to us for the solution. Well,
Hmm.
you know what? Morozko is a solution. I live it every day. I've seen what it's done for me. Quite a few of my staff are now avid cold immersers. I'm not saying a word. Um, and they've noticed the differences. So it's there. And the key is, Tom, having you, the science is there.
Hmm.
Now we'll all have our doubting. Thomas is no pun intended, but hopefully, giving you that platform and letting you break it down and just letting them hear from someone that actually has done the research, and this isn't just some BS that you've read somewhere. You've actually spent the time, and that's tremendous.
You can pick up a copy of my book if you're one of those doubters. There are 600 scientific citations in Uncommon Cold. That's my personal experience. So I believe in knowledge from case studies.
Which, by the way, Uncommon Cold is available at Broadway Medical starting next week. Come and see me for a copy. Go ahead, Tom. I'm
Sounds
sorry.
great. There are two ways of organizing knowledge or of sourcing knowledge. One is the clinical trial. The fallacy is that clinical trial doesn't tell you anything about you. Whatever P factor they had on their data, that's a general statistical ensemble. It doesn't say what's going to be true of you. And then the other way of learning, of creating knowledge, is just the N equals 1 trial, the personal experience, which is 100% true for you. But it doesn't say anything about the statistical ensemble. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't tell us how to predict what's necessarily going to happen to other people. We need both types of knowledge. So in the Uncommon Cold book, I tell the personal case studies. This is what happened to this person. This is what happened to this person. And then I give the scientific support for the mechanisms. This is how it happened. When I say I was at 750 nanograms per deciliter in total testosterone, which nobody would have taken an issue with. Every doctor would have said, yeah, geez, Professor Seager, you're doing great. You don't have to worry about anything,
Right.
And
We
then
don't want that.
750 is fine, but it's not great. Great is what happened to me after I started a regular practice of ice baths and some exercise, and I popped that total testosterone test at 1180. It came back with a little red exclamation mark, and it said,
Mhm.
too high. My urologist thought I was juicing. He sent me for another test called luteinizing hormone. And luteinizing hormone is what signals a man's gonads to make testosterone. So if my luteinizing hormone was low and my total testosterone was high, my urologist would have said, you better stop taking steroids or that's going to give you cancer. And he would have tried to persuade me to get off it. But my luteinizing hormone came back 8.9, red exclamation mark, too high. And it was because of what I was doing to my metabolism. So my N equals 1 experience is exactly what happened to my lab reports. But that's what sent me to the library to say, how could this happen? What's the scientific explanation? Turns out all sex steroids, they originate in the mitochondria. That's where a cholesterol molecule is cleaved into what's called pregnenolone. So the mitochondria convert cholesterol into pregnenolone, which is a sex steroid that is then further metabolized into all the others, whether that's testosterone or estradiol or anything else. If your mitochondria aren't right and they're not doing a good job or they're not abundant enough, it's no wonder you have low testosterone. Cold is the best thing you can do to stimulate what's called mitobiogenesis, to make new mitochondria in your body. So what I didn't know when I was getting into that ice bath to try and reduce inflammation in my prostate was that I was boosting my mitochondria. Of course, my testosterone went up because when your mitochondria function better, your whole sex hormones are going to get a boost. My PSA, which was the inflammation that I was trying to fight, that prostate specific antigen, it dropped from 7 down to 1.8. Now, what does that mean for you? For you, it's just an idea. You're like, well, if it worked for Professor Seager, maybe I should try that. And you should get your labs and you should have your test and you should try the protocol and you should see if you can get similar results. On Twitter, there's, a dozen medical doctors that'll come after me and say, well, there's no
Sure.
double-blind, placebo-controlled, gold standard study that says the thing that happened to you actually happened to you. But my readers don't care. They want what is going to happen to them.
Mhm.
They don't care what happened to your Wistar rat in your lab in China or what happened to your clinical trial in the Czech Republic or something like that. If it works for them, that's what counts.
There is another way, and no way is the right way. It's the way that works for you. And thank God it all worked out the right way for you. I had a really good friend that went the other way. He had elevated PSA, went and had the biopsy, decided he wanted to treat it holistically, which included no cold therapy. So he never got the inflammation out of there, and ultimately met his demise. And it was a sin, because had we had known then, and this was in 2018, so had we had known then what we knew now,
Yeah.
we had yesterday's paper today,
We would have get them in the ice bath. Yeah.
1,000%.
We would have put them on ketosis, cycling in and out of it. We would have done everything we could to support his metabolism and his immune system.
And this is what we're going to try to do for people in the wellness, in this space, in the medical space, people that are just, they're looking for a solution. And there is no quick fix. For the return on investment, not just financially, and not just a minute of uncomfort, a minute in the cold is a hell of a lot less painful than chemotherapy.
There are quick fixes. The no quick fix is a myth. If you're smoking, stop smoking. That's a quick
True.
fix.
Yeah.
If you work the night shift, it's very dangerous. You need to protect yourself from the fluorescent lights. If you're not sleeping well, you need to fix your sleep. Like if you are eating too many seed oils, those seed oils get incorporated into your cellular membranes. They mess up the membrane transport processes of your cells and your mitochondria. Get the seed oils out of your diet. I think when we say quick, about 3 months, and you can turn around a lot in your health. For me, with my testosterone and my PSA, I didn't want to go back to the lab. I was scared of what I was going to find. So it took me about 6 months to really have the confidence to go get my blood drawn again and say, is this working or is this not working? But since I published that article and since I published the book and Joe Rogan has talked about testosterone and pre-cooling exercise, people have been writing to me. 30 days. 30 days is enough to take one guy who wrote to me with his lab results from 280 up to over 900 in total testosterone. As far as I'm concerned, 30 days is a pretty quick fix. When you clean up your diet and your light environment and your sleep environment and you start getting some cold, doing some sauna, getting some light exercise, some steps, 30 days does not seem like a long time to really turn your life around.
Everything is progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
And you've cited this quite a bit. And I'm going to let you finish the thought. What's the best diet out there?
The one you're going to stick to.
What's the best workout you're going to do?
Yeah, the one you're going to do.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's your, as you like to say, your N equals 1. And just people need to slow their roll, kind of keep a little bit of an open mind. And if there's a better way than the way I'm doing it, show me. And that's what we're going to do, Tom.
I used to be 250 pounds. I was a fat faculty member. And I was so concerned about my children's health because, from listening to my podcast, my son has type 1 diabetes. He was diagnosed when he was 6 years old. And so I've been watching his blood sugars, his entire childhood. And of course, I have a daughter who's younger than him and very concerned about them getting the exercise they needed and eating right. Meanwhile, I would just get fatter and fatter. Finally, I sat down with my daughter and I said that I wanted to start doing some exercise and maybe see if I could get in shape. And she said, Dad, that's great. You've met Emma.
Yeah.
She's at the kitchen table and she got a sheet of paper. She says, I'm going to make some workouts for you, that I've learned from the trainer that you've been taking me to. I'm like, thank you. Thank you, Emma. That's going to be a lot of, and she put on the top of the sheet of paper, Fat Daddy Workout. Damn it. She's right. Even though like as a dad, I had this illusion that I am my daughter's hero. And she treated me like that. I know I'm fat. She knows I'm fat. And in her, innocent, helpful way, she's just putting it right on the sheet of paper to remind me of I should be doing these exercises.
Damn, you wouldn't let me forget to remember.
I realized that everything I've been doing for them was working, but what I've been doing for myself wasn't. And that a diet, whether it's ketogenic or calorie counting or whatever, it wasn't going to was going to get me where I wanted. So I said, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to put myself on the great food diet. The great food diet is if it ain't great, you don't eat it. You don't eat the gas station sushi. You don't eat the Domino's pizza that they have at the faculty meeting. You don't eat anything that comes in a plastic clamshell container or is wrapped up with saran wrap. You know why? Because that's not great. But if you're in the bakery and there's like a homemade chocolate croissant with cinnamon sprinkled on it, made out of real butter, that's great food. It's
Yeah,
technically
good.
not good for you,
Right.
right? But if you only eat what's great, and then I became a food snob, you just turn your nose up at what's not great, you stop eating all the foil wrap packaging, ultra processed crap. Now you got to cook for yourself, or you got to have good chefs use real ingredients to cook for you. I went from 250 down below 210 before I started even doing ice baths. Ice baths were not the way that I lost weight. Changing my mentality and my relationship with food, that was how I lost weight. By not putting things into my mouth that I didn't respect, that weren't great, pounds started coming off. But here's why that's hard to do in America. I go back to this conference. I'm a faculty member. I go to conferences, and every year we'd have the meeting of like our tribe, the sustainable engineering people. So we would see each other once a year. I go to this conference, and I was losing weight so fast that people came up to me and they said, "You okay?" I said, "I feel great. I haven't felt this great since I was in my 20s." And they go, "I was afraid maybe you had cancer or something. You look so thin."
Right.
Rob, you do not want to be normal, because normal at our age is on like a statin and a blood pressure medication and whatever else kind of script. Like normal for us is metabolically dysfunctional, insulin resistant, on the verge of type 2 diabetes and low testosterone. The reason the book is called Uncommon Cold is you do not want common. It is too common to be sick in this country. It's too common to be on a trajectory of degenerative and chronic illness. What you want is an uncommon life. And that means you're going to get some sideways looks from your friends. You're going to hear from your brother-in-law what an idiot you are for getting into an ice bath every 3, minutes a day. You're going to have somebody like, I don't know who's going to come over to your house and sit at your dining room table, and they're going to say, "Well, I heard somebody said on Instagram that it was dangerous and that you're going to drop dead if you do an ice bath. So if that's so dumb, why do you do it?" They'll never get in. No, they're trying to make excuses. They're trying to float these excuses in their own life for why they're sick, for why they have no energy, for why they're not competing anymore, for why they need a break, or they need a handout, or they need some special dispensation. That's not going to be me.
You know what's so funny, though? I think a lot of people are under this illusion, or should I call it a delusion, that the government and the healthcare system is going to take care of you and make all of your hopes and dreams come true. And Medicare is going to do this for me. And my health insurance or my secondary is going to do that. And, unfortunately, I see it every day. And what what the allowables actually are, and insurance doesn't give you what you think you need. It's what an actuary who's sitting there crunching numbers actually says you need, which doesn't cut the mustard, which more than
It's a
anybody.
statistic. It's got nothing to do with you. But we've set up a system in this country where every message that the patient gets is that they are not in charge of their own health. You meet with your doctor. and you have respect for your doctor. You probably like your doctor, even if you distrust these institutions in general. A lot of people have a good personal relationship with their doctor. And the doctor will say, well, I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking about that, but then we have to go see if we can get that approved. You wouldn't even be able to see that doctor if it wasn't in your network. You got approval for outside your network, and then there's a deductible, and then you go to the pharmacy to get the script that your doctor, who's approved by your HMO, wrote for you, and the pharmacist says, well, I don't know if we can get you the generic equivalent, and blah. All these decisions are made outside you. It's not your money. It's not your script. It's not your treatment program. It's only your body. Everything in healthcare and the way that it's administered is meant to disempower you and make you think that you are the victim of somebody else's decision, often people whom you've never met in some office, I don't know, in Connecticut or something, that are saying how your dot on their spreadsheet should be treated. You got to go with the exact opposite idea. And as soon as you do, you will be met with resistance, even from your own physician. If you have questions, or if you say, I don't think I'm not ready for that, or I don't have enough information for that yet, the physician will say, well, don't, compare your Google search to my medical degree. Physicians have achieved a certain status in our society, and many of them, they don't want that status challenged, especially by their patients. And part of it is because they're paid to see 5 patients an hour, and that gives them an average of 12 minutes or whatever the statistics are. And they don't have time to explain all this about you and your life to you. Every interaction that the patient has with these institutions and the personnel of healthcare disempowers the patient. There's a rare patient, some of them are your customers, who says, I'm paying for this with my own money, and I'm going to understand it before I write that check. Those people are generally much more independent, much more self-determined, much more self-made in many ways, because they're not going to give up their autonomy over their own health to some spreadsheet driven bureaucratic system that says, we'll take care of you. So when they come to you, you probably have, in a way, a more challenging sale, but a much more satisfying outcome, because they're not saying, well, this is the equipment I got because that's what somebody else would buy for me. They're saying, that's what I chosen. And this makes all the difference.
And again, these are topics that you and I will discuss, and just the whole fact that it's the right solution that works for you, but there are other solutions out there that are better for you, in the long run, could add years to your life, and that's what it's all about. You could live. I don't want to live 10 years in pain if there's a better way. I don't believe in better living through chemistry. It sucks. There's got to be a better way. And again, Broadway Medical, Team Broadway, finding solutions together. This was a solution that I found that worked for me. And through fate, when we had our conversation, the more we spoke, this could be a potential solution for a lot of people.
Let me tell you a story about this, adding years to your life, because I think a lot of people, they reach an age where they're no longer selfish. They're not thinking, a lot of people want to add good years to their life. There's nothing wrong with that. But some people are like, no, it's not about me. It's about my kids, or it's about my grandkids. So here's the story. My grandfather, for whom I'm named, he was Thomas, and my mother insisted that I be named for him. I remember adoring him as a child. He got colon cancer and he died. And he was a cantankerous old man, in the midst of his treatment. He had to wear diapers and he was miserable. After he passed, I wanted more time with my grandmother. I realized I never really got to know my grandfather. The years that he could have added, they weren't really to his life. They would have been to my life. So I picked up my grandmother in Maine, and I was driving her down to this family reunion thing that we're having. Massachusetts. It was on Nantucket Island. So this is about a, I don't know, 2.5 hour drive or something to Hyannis, and then a ferry. Gives me this captive time with my grandmother. And she's telling me stories of what it was like. She was at Smith College and she was a freshman and she partied too much, you know? So she dropped out because, and just this weird stuff. And then she had to wait for my grandfather. Both my grandparents, they had college educations, which is pretty amazing, right? She said, so I was going to wait for your grandfather to graduate from Bowdoin, but he took his time. He was on the 5-year plan. What wonderful stories to hear from my grandmother. The years that you add to your life at the end, they're not just your years. They're the years that you share with the other people that you want to remember you when you're gone. And that's a different way of motivating yourself. If you, are questioning whether you should be getting into that ice bath, you're staring at those chunks of ice and you're saying, I could probably skip a day. If you're just doing it for yourself, you'll go back to bed. But if you remember that there are people out there who still want some of you in this world, you will get into that ice bath and you will say, I'm here. I'm going to stay here for a while. I've got stories that I've got left to tell.
Get yourself a little uncomfortable. It doesn't suck. It really does.
It kind of does.
Yeah, you're right.
Joe Rogan says it sucks worse, and that's why I like it.
You know what? Amen to that, brother. Yeah. Well, listen, I'm looking forward to more of our broadcasts together. I'm thankful for having a great new friend.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to our partnership together.
It's been a pleasure.
And bringing this to the masses and hopefully helping a lot of people.
Thanks for having me here, Rob.
Thank you, pal. Yeah. Appreciate you.